My parents demanded I pay $750 rent while my freeloading brother lived free. Then Dad called, begging. "We need $800 this month or we might lose the house." I laughed in his face and hung up. See, what my family didn't know is that I'm not just some pushover they can manipulate forever. I'm Jake, 25, and I work as a senior web developer making $89,000 a year. While they saw me as their personal ATM, I'd been quietly building my escape plan and documenting every single injustice. The situation had been building for months. My older brother Drew, 28, showed up at our parents' house with his wife Amy, their 2 kids, and a yappy Pomeranian after his latest crypto scam collapsed. Got evicted from their apartment because Drew thought he was some kind of financial genius. My parents welcomed them with open arms, no questions asked, no discussion with me about how this would affect the house I'd been paying $450 monthly rent to live in since I turned 18. Suddenly, my quiet home office became a storage room for their junk. The bathroom was always occupied. That demon dog Zeus pissed on everything, including my $200 gaming headset that Drew refused to replace, telling me to grow up and stop playing video games. This from a 28-year-old living in his parents' house because he lost everything on internet coins. But the real kicker was when Mom cornered me about increasing my rent to $750 because expenses have gone up with Drew's family here. Meanwhile, Drew contributed exactly $0 while I funded their lifestyle. When I hesitated, she casually mentioned I'd be babysitting the kids that weekend while Drew and Amy went to a wedding. Not asked, told. That's when I realized these people saw me as nothing but a resource to exploit. Time to show them what happens when you underestimate someone who actually has their life together. My professional background gave me advantages my family couldn't comprehend. As a senior developer at Tech Forward Solutions, I work directly under CTO Marcus Blake, who's become something of a mentor. More importantly, I've been saving aggressively for 3 years to start my own gaming studio. While my family assumed I was barely scraping by, I had $47,000 in savings and 0 debt. My credit score sits at 780, and I'd already been pre-approved for a $200,000 business loan. I also had connections they didn't know about. My college roommate David works as a family attorney at Blake & Associates. My gym buddy Rick owns 3 rental properties and had mentioned needing a reliable tenant. My coworker Lisa's boyfriend manages a cybersecurity firm that specializes in digital evidence preservation. When you're in tech, you tend to network with people who have useful skills. But my biggest advantage was something Drew's entitled brain couldn't grasp. I'd been documenting everything. Screenshots of group chats where my parents discussed my finances, voice recordings of conversations about increasing my rent while Drew lived free, photos of property damage from their dog, a detailed spreadsheet tracking household expenses that proved their increased costs claim was bullshit. Working in web development teaches you to think systematically and plan for edge cases. While my family saw conflict as emotional drama, I saw it as a problem requiring strategic solution architecture. The breaking point came when I overheard Drew and my mom plotting to guilt me into dipping into my savings account to help the family through this rough patch. That night, I opened my laptop and started apartment hunting with the methodical precision I'd use for debugging complex code. I texted Rick first. "Hey man, still looking for that reliable tenant you mentioned?" He replied within minutes. His 1-bedroom apartment was $850 monthly, utilities included, available immediately, clean, quiet, 15 minutes from my office. After a brief phone call and credit check, I had keys in hand. Next, I called David about tenant rights. "Technically, you're a month-to-month tenant with no formal lease," he explained. "You can leave with appropriate notice, but document everything first. If they try to withhold your deposit or personal property, that's where it gets legally interesting." The strategic phase began immediately. I contacted Lisa's boyfriend about preserving digital evidence of the family group chats and financial discussions. Professional-grade documentation, timestamps, metadata preservation. If this escalated to legal action, I wanted bulletproof records. Meanwhile, I started Operation Stealth Mode. Each day I'd take a small box of belongings to my car, drive to Rick's apartment during lunch, and store everything there. Books, winter clothes, electronics, anything they wouldn't immediately notice missing. The hardest part was keeping my expression neutral while Drew lectured me about financial responsibility from his position sprawled on the couch. 3 weeks later, I had secretly moved 80% of my possessions. That Friday night, I packed the essentials and set my alarm for 5 a.m. Zeus nearly blew my cover with his incessant barking, but I'd come prepared with dog treats to keep him quiet while I loaded my car. Driving away at sunrise felt surreal. I'd lived in that house since birth, but as I pulled out of the driveway, all I felt was relief. No more screaming kids waking me up. No more stepping in dog piss. No more being treated like a walking wallet. By 8 a.m., my phone was exploding with missed calls and increasingly frantic texts. Mom said, "Where are you? Why is your room empty? I can't believe you would do this to us." Dad said, "Your mother is very upset. Call home immediately." Drew said, "Real mature, bro. Way to abandon everyone." I turned off my phone and helped Rick install his new sound system. Around 6 p.m., I finally called my mother back. "Jake, where are you?" Her voice was shrill with panic. "I moved out," I said calmly. "I'm staying with a friend." "You moved out without telling anyone? How could you do this to us?" "I tried talking to you multiple times about how unfair this situation was. You dismissed everything I said and kept demanding more money while Drew contributed nothing." The conversation devolved into guilt trips and manipulative crying, but I held firm. I'd signed a lease, I wasn't coming back, and I'd collect my remaining belongings the following weekend. Drew texted me that night saying, "Thanks for bailing and leaving us to deal with Mom's breakdown. Real stand-up guy you are." I replied saying, "Thanks for moving your entire family in and expecting me to subsidize your lifestyle while contributing nothing. Real stand-up guy you are." 2 weeks later came the phone call I'd been expecting. Dad, sounding unusually humble, said, "Son, we need to talk man to man." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him for coffee. The moment he sat down, I knew it was a financial ambush. He looked haggard, talking about how Mom was beside herself and the family was falling apart since I left. Then he dropped the real reason for the meeting. "Jake, we're in a tight spot financially. With you gone, we're short on the mortgage payment this month." I stared at him. "So, you want me to keep paying rent for a place I don't live in anymore?" "Not rent," he said quickly. "Just helping out family during a rough patch." "Dad, I moved out because you were taking advantage of me financially while letting Drew freeload. Now you want me to keep paying even though I don't live there?" "It's about responsibility, family bonds." "What about Drew's responsibilities? Why isn't he stepping up?" Dad got defensive. "Drew has a family. He's going through a tough time." "He's been going through a tough time for years, Dad. I'm done subsidizing his lifestyle." That's when Dad revealed the true desperation. "We need $800 this month, or we might lose the house." $800, more than I'd ever paid when I actually lived there. I laughed in his face and told him absolutely not. Drew needed to get a job, and they needed to stop enabling his parasitic behavior. The next day brought a series of increasingly nasty texts from Drew, ranging from guilt trips about Mom's, anxiety attacks, to barely veiled threats about showing up to talk if Dad lost his job from stress. I blocked his number immediately. Amy tried a softer approach, sending long messages about how much the kids missed me and how they might have to move to a dangerous neighborhood if evicted. When I didn't respond, she called me selfish in a paragraph-long rant. I blocked her too. Then the flying monkeys arrived. My aunt called, spouting some story about how I'd abandoned my parents financially and they were facing homelessness because of my selfishness. Apparently, my parents had been spreading sob stories throughout our extended family, conveniently omitting the part where they'd been charging me rent while Drew lived free. But the final reveal came through my cousin Mark, who had inside information. My parents weren't actually struggling financially at all. Dad had received a $12,000 bonus the month before I moved out. The whole "we might lose the house" story was complete fabrication designed to guilt me into handing over cash. Even better, Mark revealed why they really wanted my money. They'd been secretly helping Drew pay off gambling debts. Gambling debts. While he had 2 young children, that's when I went full nuclear and cut all contact. Blocked their numbers, emails, social media accounts. I even notified my office to screen any calls from them. 6 months later, Mark provided another update that filled me with satisfaction. My parents had finally given Drew an ultimatum: get a job within 30 days or move out. The guy was panicking because his crypto expertise wasn't exactly marketable skills. They'd also admitted they never actually needed my rent money for the mortgage. They'd just been using me as their personal bank account to fund Drew's irresponsible lifestyle. Meanwhile, my life had transformed completely. Living with Rick turned out perfectly. We split utilities, respected each other's space, and actually got along like adults. My work performance improved dramatically without constant family stress, earning me a promotion to lead developer and a salary bump to $97,000. I also launched my gaming studio project, developing a puzzle game during evenings and weekends. Nothing revolutionary yet, but I'm building something meaningful instead of funding my brother's gambling addiction. The best part? I started dating Emma, a UX designer I met at a programming meetup. She couldn't believe my family's behavior when I told her the story. They treated you like a piggy bank and got angry when you stopped letting them break you open, she said. Exactly. Today I own the apartment I rent from Rick after he decided to sell it to me at a fair price. And I own my gaming studio, LLC. Drew works retail now, still dealing with bankruptcy consequences, and has never attempted to contact me. My parents live in a smaller rental house, still paying off debts from their years of enabling Drew's financial irresponsibility. As for me, I've learned that cutting toxic people off isn't just an option, it's survival strategy, especially with family because they know exactly which emotional buttons to push. Setting boundaries doesn't work when people refuse to respect them. Sometimes you need to build a complete wall. The quiet ones aren't quiet because we're weak. We're quiet because we're analyzing the situation, planning our strategy, and waiting for the perfect moment to execute. And when we finally act, we make sure it counts.